Hello, welcome to this special episode of the Hessian Scrum. Joining me today is Mr. Jason Gobel and Santiago Dobles, both who have played in a lot of projects between them, including Cynic, Monstrosity, Aghora, and Synchronicity. Hi guys.
How you doing?
How are you?
Great. I'm great. So tell everyone, tell us who you are and what your current project is, and what are some upcoming releases.
That's a big one. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Current projects. Well, the last project that had a good success was the last Pestilence record, Hadion, and I did all the lead guitars on that record, and we did the last Agora record, which is Entheogenic Frequencies, and Jason and I are working on a project now called Vedana, which is a kind of like an amalgamation of fusion and rock and funk and all kinds of crazy stuff, and everything from Peter Gabriel to death metal thrown into the mix with some old school funk.
That's great. For all people who haven't heard, Entheogenic Frequencies, the first song, Path, it has a lot of that kind of fusion stuff, but then you have these crazy blast beats and really typical 90s throwback death metal riffs.
Yeah, it's hard.
Good blend.
We grew up in it, so it's hard to get it out of your system. Even when you try not to do metal, it just comes out. Yeah. So that song. Well, it's a really funny story. I was supposed to do the reunion Cynic tour, and it didn't pan out. So a lot of music I had been saving to record with Cynic, because Sean Reinert had asked me to start writing music, and it didn't end up going that way. So I just put it in the last Agora record. And so there's definitely a lot of Chuck Schuldiner type aggressive riffs in there,
It's funny because Metal Archives has you listed as, playing on Hadion with Pestilence, but it doesn't have you as lead guitarist, which is crazy to think considering that Patrick Mameli is an insane player in his own right. And he used to play a lot of his, like on the first couple of records, he did all the leads pretty much. I mean,
well, we both did the leads on that record. We traded off on most of the songs. So yeah, we both played lead guitar on it. I don't know how they labeled me on there. I don't even know. I just recorded it and sent it off on his way, and all I got to listen to were the MP3s they sent me. So I don't have any like credits or anything. I don't know how it was marketed, but I know I was proud of it. I'm happy with that record. It sounds really good, so I'm happy with it.
All right, so you just did the leads on it.
I did, and typical Santi style, I got news I was recording on a Friday, and I did all the leads on one day. It was a Saturday, 12 hours, just sat there and banged them out. And
I couldn't do that.
And on like 4 hours of sleep, but we got them out, and I was happy with it.
That's insane, because I remember listening to the album. I was thinking, this took like a month to record. It's so complex.
Nothing was worked out. None of the solos were like written or anything like that. I just approached them one song at a time, and I kept hitting record until I got what I wanted, and I moved from there. The only thing I did do was I listened to the whole album like the day before, and I wrote down the note structures of what Mameli does, because he's very atonal, even in his riffs. And so I took the riffs and I just kind of created my own scale that would work around the whole album. And then I kind of worked around that. That gave me like a framework,
Okay, so are you telling me that your sense of pitch is so developed that even during those kind of fast, sometimes like 7 or 8 string guitars, you can figure out the notes and then you can write them down and go, all right.
Yeah, I listen to what key it's in, and then I kind of listen to what intervals are constantly being used in the riffs, and then from there I make a chart of what scales and arpeggios I can use over this, and then I get rid of all that, and I just think of what melodies can swim in and out of it,
Yeah.
It's pretty out there, man. Quite a player.
Jason, remember one of the first things you said, you do everything very naturally. You know, you try to feel things, and then Santiago is on the complete opposite end, where he has a complete mastery of music theory.
We are completely different players.
I don't know if I have mastery, but my dad was very big into music theory when I was young, so it was like you had to learn it, you know. So there's no way around it.
And I'm an ear player, so we are completely opposite players. He actually gives me lessons when I come by and we jam. He's always throwing me some scales and some stuff that I could work on.
But I learn a lot from him. He just doesn't know it. I just pay attention.
Yeah.
And then I analyze it later.
But yeah, different approach for sure. But it's interesting working together as we have so far on this upcoming project. We seem to blend pretty well. Coming from completely different directions, our music seems to work well together.
Yes, I've noticed that because I remember you played. Didn't you play a bit on Formless by sorry, I've got a complete mind by Agora.
No, he played on he recorded on Jivatma on the first record. I think Sean Malone was still living near you, and he did a recording over there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's more ambient work and more soundscape type stuff on that song that I did.
You know, while we're on talking about Agora, why did you remove the vocals? You know,
I never removed them. Here's the story with that. My sister didn't want to sing in the band anymore. She didn't want to be involved in anything with metal, and she kind of went her own way. And she still sings. She has a, believe it or not, like a rap band now. She raps, and then she also does like this experimental stuff where she uses her voice like an instrument. Like there's no lyrics, it's just noise, but it's, you know, it works for her. And then the second singer, she started recording, Diana, she started recording on the last record, but it didn't fit so well because the music just got heavier and faster and more intense, and it kind of needed a male vocalist, but every male vocalist that tried flaked out on it. So I just said, you know, fuck it. It seems like it needs to be instrumental. So I just left it that way.
all right, I see. Because you know, one thing I was very curious is that you have a lot of ideas in Agora. You know, whereas a lot of metal will have maybe 7 riffs, probably 2 or 3 variations of each. You've got these 10, 12-minute songs. And it seems like kind of has this jazz fusion kind of vibe where you're not too bothered about where the song starts, where it ends.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's growing up listening to both classical music and fusion from the 70s and 80s, you know. And so to me, all the songs are a journey. So you take them wherever it goes, wherever the music calls for. You know, I never really thought about it like pop song structure, you know. To me that doesn't exist, but it depends the project, you know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, so also let's talk about the elephant in the room. It seems to me that, you know, looking at all of your stuff and some of this, what you've been saying, that a lot of your projects revolve around Cynic, and you've kind of been outside of that band for a long time, inside and outside.
It was not on purpose. It just kind of evolved that way naturally. I just happened to be a teenage kid that was in the same neighborhood, and I was friends with Sean and Paul and Jason, and I would see them live locally when they were playing locally, and friends of mine were taking lessons with Sean, and my bass player was taking lessons with Sean Malone. So there was kind of a natural friendship that spawned out of it, and then as I started developing as a player, and Sean was in his warehouse doing not much. I mean, he was just going to school. You know, he was like, "Oh, let's play, let's do stuff." So it kind of naturally happened that way.
And Santi was always an amazing player. I remember seeing him maybe 15, 16. I guess
Had to be 15.
Yeah, 15, 16. And I mean, the boy could shred already. I was like, oh, this guy's already, you know. So he was already in the scene. He was very young, but he was already at all the shows. He was active with everybody. So he's always been around, you know. And I know after Focus, I left the scene, and then I ended up moving out to Portland, you know. So I'm sure it was just natural too to they needed someone to play.
Well, no, that at that point, I mean, Sean was kind of just hanging out on his own.
Right.
So I kept the
Loved him.
friendship, you know,
Right.
and I was hanging out there almost once, twice, 3 times a week, you know.
Yeah, so
At
he
the
was
warehouse.
always around in
Yeah.
my time.
Yeah. So Jason, it's quite funny. You managed to play in 2 huge death metal classics, both Focus and Imperial Doom. So could you tell us, were you involved in the songwriting process? Were you a hired player?
So of course Cynic was I was in the band and part of all that we know, but Monstrosity, they were of course longtime friends in the scene, Mark Van Erp was in Cynic originally, and so they had gotten a deal, it was Nuclear Blast if I remember, and they needed a guitar player, and at that time that's when Tony got the opportunity to play with Atheist and Paul and Sean with Chuck. And so they asked me to play, and I was like, hell yeah, man, I'd be on that in a second. So when I went in, they had maybe 6 songs, and then I helped, I collaborated a little on 2 or 3 of the last songs, and then of course wrote and played solos. John and I split the solos. But it was, it was friends. We were all in the scene. It was like an opportunity that came up. They needed a guitar player. I was like, I got a little time because these guys are playing with some other bands, and it just worked out. It worked out great, and I ended up doing the album. Yeah, so it's just kind of fell in my lap. It was an opportunity that they had, and they needed someone, and I was available. But yeah, it was a great album. It was a great experience. I mean, those guys are all great guys, you know what I mean? And that was an interesting one. I tell you, my first practice with them was pretty intense. When I left there, my forearm had to be like, just like a half-inch thicker, swollen, full of blood. I mean, those guys are so freaking fast. It was it took me a little to catch up to them, but it was a great experience. And yeah, it turned out to be just a pretty classic death metal album,
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because Florida has the kind of really not dumb but very kind of almost one note foot crushing in your face death metal, and then there's also the really progressive, almost kind of ambient stuff that you guys are doing now and that you've always been involved with in one way or another.
Yeah.
How do you manage to do both?
How would you say that? I don't know. For me, I would say I was always into music and always open to all styles of music. Of course, as a teenager and pissed off teen, the metal grabbed me and it just wanted to get more and more aggressive with it. But I always had that open side to other styles. I always loved Motown and disco and just different styles. Of course, jazz and fusion. So I think just growing up playing, you can't just play metal all day. You got to just mix it up, play something different, bounce around, or, opportunities to play with different people. They didn't always play metal. So, just playing different styles was always fun to me. And just was part of being a musician for me, just a natural part. So it's interesting. I was talking to Vishal from a Moog Symphony and from Serpents of Patagonia. And he was explaining to me that it's funny. A lot of people have a hard time switching between styles. Sometimes they can play a couple different styles, but I have a hard time being able to blend it. But to me, music is it's all music, so it's all a push and pull. It's all dynamic, so you can blend everything together. So for me, it's always been natural to blend and to like different styles and mixing them. Just a fusion guy, I guess, at heart.
Yeah, which is one thing I've noticed a lot about both your playing styles, and it seems to be kind of a Cynic's MO, because a lot of when I look at some of the tabs of what was going on in Cynic, it was like sometimes it's metal, sometimes it's jazz, but it's not really either, from a purely playing perspective.
Yeah, like I could tell you, Jason's riffs, if you put distortion on them, they'll sound metal, but if you take the distortion out, now it's just very melodic, riffs that can be applied to anything. I mean, he's got a very funky style to his picking, and very articulate. So I think what happened naturally is because we all listen to so many styles of music, you know, and we're not just a metalhead, you know. I mean, like I grew up constantly listening to classical music and jazz and fusion and rock, 70s rock and 80s rock. So like you said, I think the metal was more of get your emotions and aggression out kind of thing. It wasn't really just about the, you know,
it wasn't only metal.
Right,
You know, it wasn't only, and then when you're listening to different styles, so like you said, you know, Florida death metal in your face, just, you know, slamming, that's great to a certain point, but you can only be in your face so much. You got to pull out, you got to back that punch away to get that impact again. You know what I mean? So there is your dynamic between soft and fast. There's your dynamic between distorted and clean. It just creates a tension and a push and a pull in the music that when you go back to that heavy part, it's that much more intense, you know? And I think that that's one of the things that also pulled us into mixing the music was, like with Cynic, even when we started adding the clean parts was necessarily because we just wanted clean. It was to create a dynamic. It was to create a release, to be able to recreate another tension or another build, you know? So just creates more dynamic options in writing and playing music, being able to play with more diverse styles, I guess.
Yeah. 'Cause, you know, this reminds me a lot of, you know, Chuck Schuldiner, you know, I think probably he was not too far from you guys. I mean, was
Orlando.
Yeah, was he really the most influential in that? Because, you know, a lot of people, especially kids who are born in like 2005 now, will tell you that Anna, everyone was copying Chuck, or, you know, Chuck was the first one to really experiment with the kind of dynamism that you guys are talking about.
One of the first that really did the metal and really did the death metal, and he is an icon, and the guy, you know, he did great things. He had a unique sound that stands how many years, you know, today and all that. I think that if you were playing in death metal, you learned Chuck songs, you learned a few, everybody did, but you also learned, you know, other people and other styles, you know, because Chuck's style is his own. It's, you hear Chuck.
And I think what Chuck did was he opened the door in metal to say, hey, we can be even heavier than Metallica, Megadeth, and Anthrax. Like, hey, that's good, but let me show you another type of metal. And I think Chuck opened that door, and then, of course,
floodgates from there to start.
And then people just started kicking the door down with how crazy it can get. I mean, look at Cynic, look at Atheist, look at Pestilence. It was like, how crazy can this thing get? You know? And now today you got what, Nile, and I don't even know the bands that are out there now, Hate Eternal, and it's all different. You know, you almost have like subgenres of different death metals, you know?
Yeah. So what can you tell us about the new Vedana record? When's it coming out? What have you done? What can we expect?
Well, we're on the right track. We've got enough music for an album. We're just waiting for everybody to kind of be everybody's schedules to coincide, to finish up drums and to get. Everybody's in a different state. So Jason and I are the only ones here in Florida. Everybody else is you know, in different locations, and obviously the COVID thing has made things a little difficult for travel and whatnot. But the music's written. We have all our parts ready to go. We just now need to do final tracks. So
we just got our first set of drum tracks. We're gonna probably have some different players mixed throughout the album,
right?
Simply because of time availability and everything. But
I think Matt's getting ready for King Diamond tour soon.
So there you go. But Matt Thompson sent us a first track, so he's gonna send us hopefully another one soon. So the music's written. Now that we have the first drum track, we can start cutting the actual tracks and start recording. So we're just at the beginning stage of that. A little slower than we had anticipated, but like I said, once we get the drum tracks and we can start cutting, then it's gonna start coming out pretty quick. So. And we're trying to decide, you know, how we're going to release it. We may end up releasing it a single at a time and then releasing a whole album at the end, you know, and that way we can kind of get some music out a little quicker. But no, it's actually going to be, we're really excited about it. It's going to be a different project. It's going to have a lot of different feels. It's going to have a lot of different styles. It's still going to have a lot of edge. to it that we just can't seem to get out of us. You
hard.
know, so
We try, but it's hard.
so we're really excited about it. We don't want to rush it, but we want to get it out as soon as possible.
It's funny because it's not Cynic nor Agora, but there's always a little bit in there, you know.
You hear it, you
Yeah.
know. But I mean, you know, we were Cynic and Agora too, so it's
Exactly.
hard to, you know, take it out.
Exactly.
All right, we have a question from 666 Death Metal Destruction of Hate.
Awesome.
Who's asking? This is for Jason. He's asking, were you offered a position for Cynic's Traced in Air, but apparently you turned it down because you found it a bit too soft? Is this true?
That's true. So what happened was we had split up, and then Roadrunner, I think, I don't know how it ended up getting in contact with us or us with them or whatever it was, but they did the release of Focus. So then that's when Paul and Sean and Malone, they started talking about, hey, let's do another album. They did contact me. They did ask me, you know, if I wanted to participate. But again, they wanted to go. So when I left after the Focus tour, that was already the direction that they wanted to go, was to go a little softer, more ambient, lose the heavy vocals. And me, I like the edge. I like, you know, it wasn't a direction I wanted to go in. So I was like, okay, it's time for us to part ways. So then when we discussed redoing it, I talked to him again and said, you know, what direction are you guys wanting to go? You know, if it's similar to what we were doing before, I could maybe do something like that, but it's just not the direction I want to go. And at that time, also, my kids were at a young age and I was very busy. And, but yeah, just, you know, Traced in Air was a great album. I haven't heard much of the stuff that Cynic's done after. But there are always great players. Paul's a great player. You know what I mean? We just went in different musical directions, and I made a promise to myself that if I'm gonna play music, I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm not gonna do it, you know,
Yeah, it can't
because
be
it's an opportunity or something like that, and it just wasn't the direction I wanted to go. So 666 Death Metal, you nailed it, my man.
Yep. So that leads me to quite a weird question, and that you played in Portal, right? So you have a Portal demo and the Portal tapes compilation, but that ended up getting released to Cynic.
Okay, so the Portal, so we came off the Focus tour, and basically the Focus album didn't take off for another 10 years. You know, it never really, it took 10 years for it to really catch on. So we did okay on the tour, but there really wasn't much support going on. We didn't feel much support on the tour from the record company. They weren't excited about another album. And so hence we said, okay, we're gonna take a break from Cynic. So we thought, you know, let's just try. Let's write a few songs that are in radio friendly commercial mode and see what we can do. Hence Portal. Chris Kringle joined the party, Aruna Abrams, and we ended up writing these songs and we started to shop them. We actually had interest from Atlantic Records. We were being shopped by Atlantic Records, had an A&R rep come out and visit us and talk to us a couple times. And we couldn't get out of the Roadrunner contract to do the Portal contract because we were contractually tied for 7 albums. It's the only way you could do it back then was to sign for a bunch of albums. So we couldn't get out. So that Portal never got released, and it sat for, I guess, at least 15 years. So at some point, Paul and Sean decided to, you know, put it as Cynic, the Portal tapes, but it was to be a different project. It was like just a commercial shot. Let's just see if we could throw something out there that could catch. It actually surprised us. You know, we had Atlanta Records shopping us, but it just never went through because of our contractual ties to Roadrunner. And so that's how it ended up getting released. And that's why it's completely different in itself from the other Cynic materials, I guess.
Oh. Well, that's great to always have a bit of light, you know, on these lesser known albums and to understand really what the hell happened, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always happy to share.
All right, let's go off into non-metal.
Okay.
So, I was kind of hearing some of you know, considering a lot of metal guys are influenced by jazz, I tend to feel a huge John McLaughlin influence, especially his second album, with the Mahavishnu Orchestra, Birds of Fire, because that's very atonal, very chromatic, very all over the place. It's not very kind of conventional in the conventional melody.
Actually, it's funny, that's the one I like the least. I like Intermountain Flame, and I like Visions of the Emerald Beyond, and the Shakti record. Those three, for me, that's all I need.
Yeah, I mean, Mahavishnu was a big influence for all of us. They were, because I mean, we were doing the jazz thing.
Yeah.
But jazz is just so clean. And back then Mahavishnu, they had edge, they were raw, it was
double bass.
It was but it was just so open and so free that it was a big influence on us for sure. And there's a certain sound to Mahavishnu, and I don't think we necessarily captured it, but cannot deny that influence was there, amazing players and all of them, not just John.
Well, for me, it was a huge influence on a lot of levels. And that's why for the second Agora record, I got Neil Kernan to help me mix the record, because Neil was the sound engineer for Mahavishnu at Trident Studios. So I wanted to know like what the hell they did, and I wanted to apply that to our record. That's how we went about there.
I didn't quite notice that. Maybe I'm not used to it, but it sounded like a very proficiently played metal record. I didn't really feel like it had kind of jazz mixing, where the snares are loud, the kick drums are very soft.
It's definitely a metal mixed record, but where you hear the influence of Mahavishnu, at least in my playing, is the note choices.
Yeah.
The note choices and the vibratos. Like I copied Jan Hammer a lot in my vocabulary, let's say, in my phrasing. I copy Jan Hammer and also the violinist and John McLaughlin. I try to emulate that in my melodic playing a lot, almost to a fault, but I like it, so it sounds good.
Yeah. So in terms of classical music, what are you guys into? I always assume maybe the more romantic period.
Bach.
I was gonna say that's the only Bach would be about the main one that I'd listen to.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. For me, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart.
I did a little Beethoven,
and then Stravinsky and Bartók.
But mainly Bach for me. And I really didn't have an extensive classical background. Like I did take some lessons in college, and had a teacher, and Paul would play one side, I'd play the other side, and we played a lot of Bach pieces like that. But that was about it for me.
No, I was forced to listen to classical music. So I had Brahms, Tchaikovsky, all that stuff. But for me, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, Stravinsky, and Bartók, that's where I got my vocabulary for everything I do, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, do you think, one thing I love about Bach is his use of counterpoint?
Absolutely.
That was it for me,
Absolutely.
man. It's amazing.
Because in metal, I nowadays I get annoyed when everyone does the kind of Iron Maiden, let's harmonize in thirds kind of thing, but not enough people are going counterpoint, where every member is kind of doing their own thing.
Well, that's what we've always tried to do. I mean, Cynic did that. Agora does that too. We always try to keep something where everybody's flowing in their own way, and we meet up somewhere and
then break apart.
I like, one thing I cannot stand is like, if a guitar player is playing the same riff that the bass player is playing, and we're all playing the same notes. To me, it's like, why? Jump off a cliff? Play. If somebody at the top is doing something, somebody at the bottom is doing something.
Right.
And then what happens is it creates a voicing on a grand scale here, and you get harmonies out of it without trying to harmonize.
Yeah, as far as like writing with music, if someone gives me a piece to write to, I was working on a project with the band out in LA, a song just not that long ago, and should be out soon. I wish I could say who it was. I'm really excited, but it was all lower range. This kid was killing it on the guitar, man, lower range. So when I listen to it, I usually go, okay, I'm going to play the exact opposite. So I go higher range, mid range, and pretty much I was the whole song. But then again, that made it such a wider spectrum. And then being in the different ranges, you can hear everything he's doing, and you can hear everything I'm doing, and the bass is his range, and you can hear everything he's doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it makes for better composition.
Yeah, we
looking
approach
at it
things
that
that
way,
way too. I
and-
mean,
And back to the Bach counterpoint, that's the same concept of even switching within instruments, playing counterpunctually creates an incredible dynamic. The last riff in How Could I? Paul had written the first part, and then I wrote the overlay part with the end part. But that was actually very Bach inspired and very counterpunctually inspired rhythm, But it does add another dynamic to music for sure.
I have a theory that metal is nothing more than classical music plugged into an amplifier with distortion.
You could say
Yeah.
fusion is jazz chords with distortion.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
That's what we did with Cynic. We just took all our jazz chords and started adding distortion and picking different.
Turning them into riffs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so the first band to really do that was Atheist, right? To really bring in the jazz elements.
Somewhat, yeah. I would say they were here in the scene. They were definitely out before we were, and they were a big influence on us.
Yeah.
Those guys, Kelly and Rand and Roger, rest in peace. You know what I mean? And Steve, all great guys and great players, and they were definitely an influence on us as far as other band out there experimenting in different styles and bringing jazz into it and everything like that. So yeah, most definitely.
I would even venture. I mean, I listened to both those, the first Atheist record and then the one that Tony played on. I would think that Tony even pushed him in another direction.
Oh, yeah.
With the elements. I mean, he really added a new light to that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
Nope.
and Tony is
Incredible.
a dynamic player because he could play Roger's style,
Yeah.
which if you ever saw Roger play live, it was like he just beat the crap out of that bass, man. It was insane. He demanded those notes, and Tony could mimic that. But then Tony also has a lot of finesse and has a lot softer, jazz Latin style playing. So I think it added another dynamic to Atheist as well. And of course, I think they were looking to expand on that. So it was a great venture that they did together.
One band I feel that has maybe a lot of influence in metal and is kind of like maybe the number one non-metal band to influence metal is King Crimson.
I was never really into them too much because I was more into Yes and Bill Bruford's band with Holdsworth. So for me, King Crimson, I would dabble, listen a little bit, but
Same
I was
here.
never really like a big King Crimson fan. To me, honestly, the guitar players weren't that good. I know people are gonna hate me for that. Like I've seen Robert Fripp, I've seen him live. He's amazing at what he does, but does nothing for me. I was always more Alan Holdsworth, John McLaughlin. There was that other guy that played with Return to Forever with Al Chicoria. I can't remember his name.
Frank
now.
Gambale?
Well, no, before.
Return to Forever.
It was after Al Di Meola. It was Bill Connors. Bill Connors. I like that style a little bit more.
Yeah, same with me. I did dabble in King Crimson. I would say like Malone was a huge King Crimson fan. So I got exposed to them. Amazing band, and I don't know, maybe the Frank Zappa prog metal,
I was more into Zappa for sure.
That type deal, but
Zappa definitely influenced me more.
But yeah, King Crimson, maybe not with Santi and I personally, but I do agree is a very big influence for a lot of people in the metal.
And maybe the thing that ties that together, or maybe the influence is really like the people in it, like Bill Bruford and Terry Bozzio. I mean, that's probably the one part that I did get an influence from.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that. Terry Bozzio did end up playing with Korn for a while.
With who?
With Korn.
Yeah, he did with
wow.
Korn. That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Weird combination.
Well, probably in Korn, the only interesting thing is the drums.
Yeah.
I mean, not being nasty. I mean, they're good at what they do and they write great songs. And actually, they're good live. I've seen them live. But as a musician, I remember seeing them live. I just paid attention to what the drummer did. I didn't really watch anybody else.
Oh, who you got there?
It's my cat.
Oh, what a cute kitty.
Yeah, he's going to walk on the keyboard. So,
Yeah.
you know, one band I completely forgot to mention is Gordian Knot, which you played in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Any particular question or something that you wanted to know about Gordian, or?
Well, you know, my first question about Gordian Knot, because I always felt a huge King Crimson influence, and you said that was mainly Sean Malone, right? Not you.
Correct. So the Gordian, that was Sean's band.
Yeah.
You know, so he would come up with the song structure, and he knew what he wanted in the music. So he definitely was a very big King Crimson influenced player. So you would hear that in the music, and then it was a great experience working with him. I would write a lot of the music, my parts I would write, and then he would come in and say, "Hey, do you mind hitting this accent or fine tuning this accent?" He had this vision.
Yeah, he was always a producer hat.
Yeah, which is fine. That was it was his gig.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Sean Malone's baby. I really enjoyed playing on it. Like I got to write some cool stuff on there. I got to play with Bill Bruford, which was amazing.
And
Yeah,
Steve
we
Hackett
hung out,
too, right?
and I never got to meet Steve.
Okay.
Never got to meet Steve. He just did a solo on there, but Bill I got to meet with and hang out, and
shit, I wish I could have met Bill Bruford.
yeah, he came into Portland, and we went and visited him. He played a show, so we caught him while he was on a tour and over from Europe. But yeah, that was a really interesting experience. That's when the whole recording at home came in. Right. That's when the Pro Tools was just coming in. He got a record contract. Instead of recording, he took the money and he bought the whole Pro Tools rack setup.
Yeah, he got the 011 and he got the little Mackie, I remember.
Yep, and that was the first album that I recorded at home, you know, sitting at home. And we would, so him and I really, he had the structure, I wrote the guitar parts, we fine-tuned it, and then he sent it out to the other players for the solos and for stuff like that.
Now you played on the first one too, right?
No, only on the second one. I think Sean maybe played drums on one of them.
Sean played on the first and second one. Yeah. On the second one, he played only some of them.
Played half, and Bill played half. Yeah. But yeah, so we would take turns. I would ride up to him. He was about 2 hours away from me when we lived in Portland. He was teaching at University of Oregon, and he was in Eugene. So I would go up there, and we would write and work together. And he'd come over to my house and spend a day or so on the weekend, and we'd do the same thing. And it was very interesting. And the reason he called it emergent was because we had the song structures and we had wrote this out, and then every time we sent it to one of these other players, it would emerge into something completely different and emerge into something completely different. And, you know, so it was an interesting experience. It was probably the closest I got to work with Malone, you know, in our relationship, for sure. And it was a great album, great experience.
That leads me to another question, you know, which is something that kind of makes me scratch my head a lot. You know, you guys got to record both with analog studios and then now, you know, kind of home recording setup, right? The digital. Now, one thing I noticed.
If you only knew how analog I am.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I never got to use analog ever, and I probably will never have the money for it. But what do you guys prefer? What do you think is better for the kind of music you're doing now?
Analog. So I only use digital now just to record and to edit, but I record analog going to digital and I mix analog back into digital. So what does that mean? I use analog mic preamps, I use analog EQs, analog compressors. I use some plugins, but most of my stuff is analog outboard gear, particularly Neve, you know, distressors, things like that. I have a tube console. I still prefer analog. To me, it gives you the punch and allows you to drive things without distorting. And it makes it sound like, you know, like it's a Goliath, like it's King Kong, you know?
Yeah, you know, one thing I've noticed, like a very loud analog record, one that's not particularly well produced, will always sound better than kind of squeaky clean digital record, no matter the style.
Yeah.
The warmth, or there's something
Yeah,
to the punch. Or
We just remastered the first Agora record like a couple months ago, and to me, it sounds so good because it's analog. You know, when that was all 2-inch tape, and the only one who did digital was Malone. He recorded on Pro Tools, and then we converted it to analog.
yeah.
So yeah, I still prefer analog 100%.
I can definitely that can
Let
definitely
me put
see
it this
that.
way: if I had $15,000 cash, I would buy a 2-inch tape machine just so we could record the album
Wow.
on that. That's what I would do. That's how
That'd be
committed
cool.
I am to analog.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Well, you know, unfortunately, we can't do that, so we have to try and, you know, mess around with digital until it sounds almost good.
It's easier, you know.
No,
you can't.
it's definitely
You
easier.
gotta admit it's easier. You know, it is more convenient, especially even just for writing and structuring. And then if you got to get a right sound, you can always go.
But like
You
even
know.
like, you know, when we're doing our demos and stuff for Vedana, we went straight in, but we go through the API and it just sounds freaking godly. You know, you can't beat it. You know, I always looked at it like, okay, what does Alan Holdsworth have in his studio? What does Eddie Van Halen have in his studio? What does Steve Vai have in his studio? Okay, I'm gonna buy whatever I can buy because I can't afford that, but I'll just get little pieces, and that's what we've done. So
That's what he's done.
Yeah.
I'm the gear geek, the gear hoarder.
That's the best. But you know, I'm not gonna lie. You know, just having one little box and a decent computer that does everything, it's kind of very easy.
No.
convenient, man.
That is convenient,
It is
and
convenient.
still use the box. But if you can warm up your signal going in and warm up your signal going out, there's nothing wrong
Make
with
a
that.
difference, yeah.
Somewhere in there, get some tubes, you know. And now it's not that expensive anymore. You can find pretty decent, good, even Chinese knockoffs of stuff that's good, you know. I think Clark Technic now makes some good EQs that are like the Pultic EQs. They're tube EQs, and you can get them under $500, I think.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
really not bad, to be honest. All right, so you know, you mentioned the name Alan Holdsworth a lot. You know, for a lot of were you trained by Alan Holdsworth for a while, I believe?
Well, okay, so Alan is rest in peace. He was a great, first of all, a huge influence on many levels, but also a really good friend to me, a great friend, I would say. And Alan did not like to give lessons, and he would be kind of weird if you asked him for lessons, but he would share a lot with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see that.
So that was kind of the nature of how that relationship was. I just met him many times at the NAMM show, and then I kept harassing him until he gave me his phone number, and then we talked on the phone. And then in Miami we played together. Agora opened up for his band twice, and I stayed in touch with him for many years. But then I felt bad like bothering him because I don't know. I always felt like I didn't want to be a nuisance to him. But he shared a lot with me that really affected me in terms of a player and also a sound engineer and also just a guitar geek, you know, like how do you set up your guitars, what pickups, what amps, what the whole thing.
I never got to meet Alan. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So to me, it was like I had that one opportunity to meet the guitar god in the flesh, and I got to spend time with him, and I'm lucky to have called him a friend. So nice. I'm humbled, honestly, still humbled by it.
Right. That's great. I'm just gonna check. I think we received another question. No, not for now. Just some trolls.
They're like, we know Jason. Who's the geek on the other side?
Is this live or something like that? It's live right now, or?
Yeah, live. No, it's not live, but it's that I tell a few people what we're going to be doing, and they ask me like, oh, be sure to ask X this, be sure that, because then sometimes after these podcasts, they'll be like, oh, why don't you ask this? Why do you bring this up?
Sure. So,
that's cool. Well, hello to anybody who's listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Now, you guys always played very technically advanced music in one way or another, okay? Yes? Nothing you ever played in none of the bands we've mentioned could be considered as being simple at all. But sometimes simple music is much better than very complex technical music. How'd you get the balance?
how to get the balance, or
yeah. How'd you get the balance between?
Well, I think we're both very disciplined in the idea that what matters is the song.
yeah,
So if the music and the song doesn't make you feel good or doesn't convey the emotion and the energy that we want, then fuck it, trash it, move on.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think we really ever tried to be tech for the sake of being tech. It was more tech for the sake of making a killer song, you know, whether.
Yeah. And I think that, gosh, it's funny. That's come up before as far as being technical. So as a player, as a kid growing up, I was an ear player, and I would just, you know, listen to the radio, grab the guitar, and try and figure out the songs.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to challenge myself more, so I started to figure out the heavier songs. That was part of my progression from rock to metal to speed metal, death metal. You know what I mean? And the whole thing there too, and progression to all the other styles as well. So, but it's interesting. I do understand. I think a very extremely simple pop song is absolute brilliance. I cannot say that I don't see that. I don't know if I could technically do that. I think that like you see it with a lot of musicians, and people say, for example, I have my own sound. You know, you could, if I play on a certain song, you could usually hear that, you know, my style. I've heard that before or whatever. So you've got these great pop writers, you know, and that's their sound, you know, or their style. So
and remember too, in pop, when you see the inside of pop, right, a lot of times it's 7 or 8 writers writing one song, and they're all superstar writers.
And there's not one note that's not accounted for, or I mean, there's no, it's completely almost mathematically set or whatever. So I do see the value of that. I do see the beauty in that. I think that it's just, for me personally, at least, it's just my style. Maybe it's just a little more naturally complex, and my tempo's a little higher. I have a personal friend of mine, and we always go back and forth because she loves slower paced, you know, music, and mine is just a little higher. So I think it's a preference or a natural style thing too.
Well, and you know what I think happened with the tech thing, right? Like, especially here in Florida, and I'm sure Jason will agree to this.
I never wrote anything.
We weren't trying to be tech, but everybody was, because back then everybody played live,
right?
So it was never on purpose, but I remember every band was trying to like be the tightest, best fucking show live, like kick ass,
competitive,
like get on stage, competitive, be tight as fuck, and put on a great show.
And put on a good show, yeah.
And so naturally you had the Tampa metal guys, the Orlando metal guys, the Miami guys. And it was constantly this unspoken competitive thing of like,
we're friendly, but everyone
we're going to go on stage,
be the best of the night,
and blow them out of the water.
Everybody wants to do that.
And I think by default that created the tech thing, not on purpose, but it was kind of like you wanted the killer riff live where it got the crowd moving kind of thing, but also got everybody to just go like, whoa, you know. So at least I experienced it that way.
Yeah, you know, because I got into metal in like the kind of mid 2000s, and one of the ways, you know, I remember, you know, it wasn't like today where it was absurdly popular where everyone's walking around with death metal t-shirts, but it was starting to get big. And I remember, you know, as teenagers, our self-defense mechanism against other people was like, it's more technical than your music, so it's better. You know what I mean?
Interesting. It's saying metal compared to a rock album or something like that, right?
Yeah, because
I mean, that was part of my progression too. I got bored with rock. I started to get bored with metal, and it's like I need something more challenging, and that was the direction that it kind of goes.
Do you think the word technical has kind of hurt metal? Because, you know, now you've got technical this metal, technical that, technical.
I think the word that's hurt metal is gent. Okay, at this point, gent is the cancer of metal at this point. It's my humble opinion. Please
go on. I trust you. You won't find many gent apologists here.
I mean, look, here's the truth about that style, right? Late 90s, you had the 7-string guitar started coming out, right? And you had Frederick from Meshuggah was starting to do demos. You had a band called Criminy that was on Shrapnel Records with Derek Taylor, who was starting to do demos. He was a guy I took lessons from. And so, of course, I gravitated towards that too. So we all had the 7-string, and by default, you start chugging on that low string. And this style came about. And of course, the credit went to Meshuggah, but they weren't the creators of it. They just did a really good job of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And they can get away with it because they were kind of like one of the first ones to brand it. But now every kid and their mother went from 8-string to 10-string to 7-string to 14-string. I don't even know how many strings they play. And then and now everybody's trying to like copy Meshuggah to the point where me personally, I just turn it off. I haven't listened to anything new in ages. Very rare that a metal band now gets my attention, you know. Not on purpose. It's just, it's kind of like I've heard it before, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I always hate the fact that instead of taking the rich harmonies and melodies from jazz, they have to take that kind of like mid 60s rhythm that is always the same. It's like the one rhythm they all know, and they just stick to it for 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And then now you have the guys that are slowing down the gent, right? I mean, look at what Tool's doing now, and look at what the guys that follow that market. It's just a slower Meshuggah, you know. I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong; it works for them. But to me, I can't do that. You know?
So that leads me naturally. You know, one thing I really can't stand with modern metal is the whole, you know, let's chug on the low string, you know, whatever, low 6th string, 7th, whatever, but just rhythm. Does metal need melody for you guys for it to work, or can you just get away with doing da 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 da?
Not for me, it doesn't work. I gotta have it.
Yeah, we all work. Always, there's some melody going on. Even in the riff has to have a melody.
Yeah.
Or I mean, in Agora, everybody's playing a melody at some point. The bass player, even the drummer. If you listen to the overheads, there's a melodic thing going on. I think music has to be well-rounded. You know, doesn't matter the style, but it has to have rhythm, harmony, counterpoint, syncopation,
and the melody, the head, the jazz head, the melody, the something. There's got to be something to tie it together. You know, even if you're blazing out the riffs, there's got to be something there to make it all congeal.
Look at just in the guitar world. Look at why, in my opinion, people like Steve Vai and Satriani are so successful, because of their ability to play a melody on their guitar.
Oh my God, yeah.
More so than just shredding, right?
There you go, Steve Vai, Satriani. Look at the range of the guitar that they play in.
Yeah,
they're not up in that upper range. You know, it's funny now. I've found with my playing, at least lately, I'm in a higher range. I seem to be playing in a higher range, and it depends on who I'm playing with. So if you know, we're working with some guys out of Germany on a project that Santi and I are doing, and that bass player, man, he's killing it in that low range. You know, so there's no reason to even go there. You know, it's like you can find the different spots and create melodies.
You have a big spectrum, right?
There,
you got the low end. You know, you got the low end, the mids, and then the high end. So something's got to be swimming inside there, you know.
If it's all low end, it's I think it's boring.
And to be fair, it's like, you know, I've heard so many Meshuggah records, I forget which one's which at this point. You know, they're awesome at what they do, but after the first 3, I can't keep up with the same song done over again.
You know, I like Meshuggah when they were pretending to be Metallica on the early stuff.
Yes, and they were trying to.
Their demos were.
And they were doing
that.
Pantera type stuff. That was good stuff.
I remember
that album is fantastic. I
love
that.
Quite an evolution for the band. I mean, I saw Meshuggah. I don't want to disgrace the album with Ozbek or something. It was like a picture of a guy with the bald head and the
Obscene, I think.
Okay. And I think it was that tour, and they came in with Cynic. I think it was Traced in Air or whatever. They were coming through Portland, so I took my kids and we went and saw the band, said hello.
Yeah.
I thought they're killer, man.
No, they're really tight
thought they were killer,
fantastic
tight, man. And I think that's, like he said, maybe they had caught that market and maybe the people have taken it too far. But at that point, it was very fresh, and I was impressed,
when their Destroy Erase Improve came out, that was phenomenal. And I saw them live on that tour. They were so tight, really, really good.
Just those time signatures, those things that they're doing is pretty crazy, man. But very cool band. But yeah, it's funny. I do remember back in the Cynic days and my Focus days, their demos were like Metallica.
Paul
and
had the
stuff.
demos. I remember Paul
yeah.
and Sean had the demos. Yeah.
It was like Metallica. And then I hear years later, I'm like, who's that?
Yeah.
Wow, they evolved. Good for them. Good band.
You know, one thing I've noticed that for a lot of musicians, right, is that a lot of time, you know, especially on the guitar, I think it's kind of problematic. Is, you know, sometimes you can get stuck in the same hand shape. You box yourself in. You know, Santiago, you have the theoretical approach. Jason, you have the kind of very feeling approach. How do you escape from, you know, getting boxed into one position where you're essentially just staring at and you one point of the guitar in your hands is doing the same thing?
You're saying so how do we avoid playing similar type stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Box
Yeah.
pattern. Yeah.
Always play different stuff.
Yeah.
Mix it up.
Yeah.
Listen to different things, you know, listen to different styles, play different styles, approach it differently. You know, like I'm working on a project, on another project, and it's I would say a more of in the prog metal, got closer to the King Crimson style. But every time I approach writing, I consider what I had written before, and I go, okay, I came in from the left, I came in from the right, I came in from above, I'm going to come in underneath this time, or, you know, and you just try to, but that's part of being creative, you know? And then once you get that habit of just always changing things, and for me, when I write, usually I just have to hit the one or two notes, and then those one or two notes will tell me where I need to go next. If you follow the music, it'll lead itself in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you're following the music, you're not following your habits. So it forces you. I mean, I've told you, dude, why do I always write shit I can't play? You know, I write it and then I got to figure out how to play it, because I hear it, I can do it slowly, and then you got to figure out how to produce it. But I think it's just by changing the way you think and becoming aware that you're repeating the pattern. Okay, come at it different. If I'm coming at it the same way, maybe take the distortion off, change to the sound, or let's play only in this range, you know, or you just got to forcefully mix it up. Once you become comfortable with that, then it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Oh.
And also, there's only go ahead. There's only 12 notes.
Cheers, guys.
You know, there's only 12 notes in music, right?
Yeah.
So really, there's only 12 tones. So the trick is to find, like, let's say you have a riff or a chord, or in a song, you're gonna have a canvas to play on.
Yeah.
From the theory point of view, or at least the way I was trained, is you take what's the commonality in all those riffs or chords, like what scales and what arpeggios, what intervals flow within that, and then what tonalities can you, it would be called modal interchange. What modes can you go in and out of where it doesn't sound schooled, but it sounds musical? What melodies can come out of that? And that's how I approach all guitar playing. And then you find the way to break patterns actually is to make smaller patterns and then navigate through smaller patterns that don't seem related and then connect them. And then now you create stuff that on the outside, it looks like it's not connected. But then when you look deeper, you're like, oh, wow, it is connected this way, you know?
He's really technical like that.
Yeah, that's great.
I have to say, and I see it as we work together. I come from a completely different direction, but yeah, he knows what he's playing. I just hear it.
You know, that leads me. Do you guys have any experience with Guitar Pro or guitar tabbing software in general?
I don't even know how to use it. I tried. I gave up, man. I just write shit out by hand, and you know, like whenever I write things for him, I write them on note paper, and even a normal collegiate writing notebook. I write stuff out. I don't use any software.
And funny, I don't even write stuff out. I usually remember, you know, by memory, if I can hear it and I know where to go and typically what I'm doing. But lately I've been kind of immersed in a few projects and writing a lot of material. So now I'm actually just doing a quick video run through.
That's probably the best thing.
Video run through, and then it's right there, and oh gosh, that's what I was doing. I forgot, you know, and then it's back like that. But then again, I'm ear trained. I'm not theory. I can't bust it out even tab or notation like this guy.
It's funny because people ask me like, "Do you have tabs for Agora?" I'm like, "No, I don't, man. Don't do it.
I haven't even tried to play through the tabs of the Cynic Focus tab book that came out to see if it was even.
I haven't even seen it.
Oh, I'll bring it by and show you. I have one. No.
One thing, I played in quite a few bands, know a lot of people. Everyone who's approximately my age, so between 35 and 20, uses Guitar Pro or guitar tabbing software. Do you think that's dangerous because you can kind of like copy paste someone else's tabs?
If I might ask, so they're using it to put their music down and to
some people,
save their
people
music?
write in it. They write. They'll tab in a riff and then they'll move notes around. They'll play it back MIDI and then they'll learn it on their guitar.
Oh,
so a lot of new metal is done that way.
Oh wow!
Which I think is cool, but again, that's a vocabulary that I think our generation.
I was
missed,
going to say, I don't think I could give you an honest opinion because I didn't even know that was.
So a lot of the tech metal guys now, what they do is they open up Guitar Pro or whatever, and they write riffs manually by MIDI, and then they play it back. Does it sound cool? And then they learn it on their guitar.
Sounds so hard.
Which to us is like just fucking plug in and play. Does it sound good to you? Sounds good to me. All right, cool.
That's insane. I've got like a couple of hundred of Guitar Pro tabs. That songs, ideas that they played out, but I never learned how to play them myself. So,
yeah.
You constructed them the way he was telling me. You construct them first and then go back if you were gonna play them yourself and relearn them.
Yeah, literally like that. I can do 4 or 5 guitar harmonies.
Common thing now, like really common.
Yeah.
Where that could be cool and technology, and you could probably do it anywhere.
Well, think about it. It's no different than a composer writing in notation and then learning at the piano, what he wrote. I mean, in that respect, it's kind of going full circle. Yeah. It's just with tablature, Yeah. But cool. I mean, if it works for you and if it works it's working for a lot of people. I mean, I know a lot of pro guitar players that do it that way. Like my friend, I have a friend of mine in a pretty famous death metal band, used to be a student of mine, and he, that's how he writes his riffs.
Never heard of that before. I learned something.
A name, please.
I can't give you that name, but you know who he is. You'll know who he is.
We'll look up.
He's very good. Actually, I'll give you his name. John Matos, Abiotic.
Oh, yes, I see.
Great riffs, great player. I mean, I knew him when he couldn't play, and now he's fucking sweeping and doing all kinds of crazy, writes his little riffs out, and he got, he's doing his thing.
Whatever works, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, what works for you.
Yeah.
All right.
You got to remember, we came in the era where there was no fucking YouTube. There was no Instagram.
Yeah, no.
If we wanted to learn somebody's solo,
there wasn't even much tablature.
We had
notation.
Yeah, we had to get those. Remember the little Tascam thing that Sean had recorded in, and then slow it down half speed, transcribe it, and then learn it. I mean, it was like a mission to learn shit back then.
Yeah, a private lesson or something like that if you had, but it wasn't available like it is today. Amazing. The young players that I see today, and kudos to them. I love it. I absolutely love seeing kids play.
They've changed the game.
But there's so much information out there. You think about what was available. Man, I wish I had that. What you probably at your age had available to you musically when I was growing up.
Yeah, we
wonder how it would have affected us. How it would have affected us differently.
Yeah, I think my personal experience with it is because, all that information was available too quickly. A lot of friends, we'd read the tabs, play the song once or twice, not even jam it. And be like, okay, Kiss, that's easy. Iron Maiden. And then, you'd get to a point where you're playing, ridiculously technical stuff, but you're not playing it properly. There's no feeling because, it's just like you're just playing along to your laptop, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there is a big difference. People younger musicians maybe I don't think understand. There's a difference between writing a piece of music that's simple. People go, man, that's easy. I can play that or whatever. But can you write that? Is a different, completely different story. That's back to that pop thing. Pop being very simple but a good pop song is like insanely hard to write. So there's something that's very interesting to me when I see people that are really technically proficient, but there's some gap there where they didn't get the creativity
Here,
side.
I'll
Does
tell
that
you.
make sense?
I'll tell you one thing I see missing in like 90% of most guitar players out there on Instagram and YouTube: timing, feel, and vibrato. A lot of them haven't developed their vibrato. You know, the things that make the melodies and the solos sing, and you know what I mean. That's missing because everybody's too quick on learning how to play fast and how to sweep or how to quadruple tap. You know.
See, playing fast to me, I've never been a shredder.
Right.
And I don't think I ever would be. I mean, we're always still striving to be better, but playing fast is only, you know, so for example, Alan Holdsworth, okay, you know, his name's come up already, big influence for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I like the slow stuff because it was his slow stuff, those choices, that phrasing that made the fast stuff so dynamic.
Yeah.
You know, I was never an Yngwie Malmsteen fan. The guy would just blaze.
See, I was in the beginning. In the beginning, I was.
And it was just,
when he first came out, I was.
It's just too much. There's not that tension, that pull. So playing slow and phrasing.
But you know what I got from Yngwie that I really liked? To me, still, it's his vibrato.
Yeah,
when he wants to play bluesy and have a vibrato and make that note scream,
that
was it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think Yngwie's early stuff was very good. You know, there was a lot of soulfulness, and despite him playing fast, every note was really well calculated.
And not disrespecting him, an amazing guitarist, but it was never like my gig. Like that was my challenge with him as far as.
I can understand. You know, I've heard some of his later stuff, and I'm like, wait, this guy uses about 10 or 15 licks on an album now, and it's been the same ones.
I don't know if you know about him, right? But he had a major car accident at the peak of his career, and he had to get his hand rebuilt. And so he basically had to relearn how to play guitar.
It's never the same after that, I'm sure.
And so there you got to like take your hat off and go, man, the guy's a fucking badass. He relearned how to play, you know?
Right. That's insane.
Dave Mustaine as well.
Yeah, Dave too.
Which is insane.
I like Dave. I've always liked Dave, his riffs and his attitude and his vocals. I've always been a fan of his.
Some of his solos are great, Mustaine, because he played with very incredible players, and he was never afraid, you know, to kind of like go into their face.
Always.
Yeah. No, he's great. I love Dave Mustaine. Always liked him.
All right.
I would argue to say he's, in my opinion, he's one of the best parts of Metallica.
Dave wrote them all.
Yeah, he did. It's kind of like someone I know who used to be in Cynic and actually wrote a lot of the cool shit in Cynic.
You know, one of the reasons I decided to seek out Jason is because, you know, I heard a lot of rumors about, you know, maybe you wrote a lot more than you were credited for, you know, without disrespecting anyone.
I mean, we actually counted it out one time, Paul and I. He was the one that wanted to know. And we were close to 50-50. I think I beat him by a couple rhythms, you know, in the writing of that album. And yeah, I think maybe because leaving, I don't think, you know, anything intentional, but maybe because of me leaving and the band continuing on, people maybe thought that it was just all Paul. You know, it definitely, I'd heard that a lot, you know, over the past. But yeah, I wrote half that album. So, you know, a lot of people say, wow, I'll hear different things like the new Cynic doesn't sound like the old Cynic. Well, you're missing a key element. I wrote half that. Never will. I wrote half that album, you know, and then now people will say with some of the stuff that I write, they like, I hear like Cynic in there. I'm like, yeah, well, because I was writing half of that album.
Well, actually, and I would go further to say that you and Tony wrote a lot of stuff.
Yeah, Choi contributed a lot of stuff.
Tony wrote a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And people, and some of that changed into Focus later. But there were some things there were Tony's.
There's Choi rhythms in there for
Absolutely.
for sure on Focus and all that. Tony contributed a lot also. So, you know, the thing, and I don't know, I mean, I've heard it, it's, to me, whatever it is what it is, but it was never a lead man in Cynic. We were all active, hardworking players. We were A-types. You know, people think, I had another people, they said, oh, you guys must have been sitting there like scholars. No, it's like, get to band practice, warm up, go to the center of the stage and start boxing it out and seeing how we could, fight to get, the song to sound the way that we wanted, because we were all A-type personalities.
Right.
We wanted it to sound good. So everybody contributed. It's funny, even Reinert, so even though Reinert, who did write stuff on keyboards and like the How Could I stuff and parts like that, but his activity in the structures of the song and putting together,
big time.
We would get together and we get the ideas and we go, these are the ideas for the song, your basic rhythm, your basic chorus, whatever, how we're going to loop it together. And then we'd work it through as a band. And Reinert was brilliant, man. I mean, that guy really wasn't a drummer. He was a musician, in the sense where he really a ranger. He listened to everything, and some of the brilliant changes on the Focus album were definitely Reinert. But yeah, long story short, it was a big contribution of everybody at that time. There was nobody slouching on that, on that music, I guess.
That'll be quite fun. I'm gonna go through Focus and Imperial Doom, and I'm gonna see exactly what you wrote. See if I can really tie it all in, and we'll have an article on the website about that. And you'll tell us if we got it right.
I would love that. I would love that.
Well, you can hear it in the Cynic demos.
Yeah,
you can hear it, and you'll hear what's.
It's funny. I don't hear it as much. It'd be interesting to see, but I've had people tell me, "Oh, that's yours," and I was like, "Wow."
See, I
even have it now with some of the stuff that I play.
I can pick it out when I hear him play, and I hear Cynic, and I was there, I saw it. I know what Paul played, I know what he played, and I can tell you that there was a lot contributed from Jason, and like we said, like Tony, and Sean too. Sean would tell you, "Oh, change the riff like this,"
Yeah, he was always in it. But yeah, it's just interesting.
All right. So, any expected date for Vedana or anything you?
Hopefully within the next 6 months. Hopefully sooner. I would like maybe 2-3 months from now.
Yeah. So yeah, we got to discuss further. But yeah, I'd love to see it out, or at least start releasing some of it out here in the next few months. That would be a great goal.
So. Is it out on a label, or are you still not sure how you're going to release it? How can people get a copy?
We don't need labels.
Yeah, you can.
We don't. We stopped using labels a long time ago. That's outdated technology.
Yeah, it's funny. We both actually want no part.
Yeah.
Of being.
Unless there's a good. Unless it's something good.
Right, but it's got to be good because it's burned me.
Yeah.
For sure, and
burn me too.
And it's now with today's technology, you don't really need it. If you don't need the funding, if you can record everything, if you're a competent musician who record everything at home and produce a product, that was, back in the day, you had to pay for the studio, you had to pay for the marketing, you had to pay for all that type of stuff. So now you really don't have to do that, and you don't have to take a loan from the bank to put your album out anymore, if you do it right. So that's the route we're kind of going.
Any final things you guys want to say?
Well, first of all, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the interview, and actually thank you for the good interview and not regurgitating, like I said, it's interesting. Some interviews you just say the same thing you've been saying for the past, 5-10 years. So
right.
Thank you for a very good interview and the opportunity to be on your show.
No, thank you guys for giving us the time. And I'm never going to ask you, oh, how has COVID affected your music? Oh, do you have a funny story from tour? Blah blah blah.
Well, I'll tell you how it hasn't.
Thank you.
We live in Florida.
That's great.
I still have yet to see anybody really with COVID. I've yet to see anybody. I'm not going to get into it, but it hasn't affected
fatally affected by it in any way.
Hasn't affected any of us.
I know the same. My neighbors are turnip farmers, so I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Oh,
there you go.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I think that's your biggest defense against all this COVID and virus. Get out, get some, get some fresh air, some sunlight, some vitamin D.
Move the body.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on, guys. So that's Vedana. That'll be out sometime. Be sure to check upcoming social media.
It'll be out on social media soon. Yep,
Absolutely. Let me see if I could plug in. Just got a couple solos I got coming out on a couple different albums. And these all should be out by the end of the year. Savage Deity, band out of Bangkok, Thailand, that I did a solo on their upcoming album. Viogression, old friend of mine, Brian Deneff, great classic band. And then Santi and I are both playing on a song for Lamentations, new album. The song's going to be called Shiver. And
we're recording today, hopefully.
Yeah, that's actually we're finishing up today. We're actually just getting ready to jam after your interview here. But we have the Vedana, of course. We have a really cool project, man. I wish I could say more about it. That we're working with these crazy German guys. It's gonna have some edge. It's gonna be fast. It's gonna have a unique sound, and we hope to have that coming out by the end of the year. And we hope to be able to let more information out about that hopefully within the next month or so. And most everything I got is hush hush. We can't say, but there's a lot coming up.
And then
musically, there's a lot of stuff coming up musically.
I'm pulling Jason into my dad's music. My dad does like fusion, bizarro, crazy stuff.
Yeah,
kind of like Zappa, but it's another level. So
classical Zappa.
So we're pulling Jason in to contribute. He's going to be involved in that this year.
Excited to do that. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming out. It's just been slow rolling. You know, I definitely took a break off of music for many years, and
I had to too because of work.
Now I'm back in full force, and now these opportunities have come, and it's just a matter of time of just belting it all out. But everything seems to have its own unique sound, and it's going in a bunch of different directions. So a lot of cool options and music. I think that we're both going to have coming out here pretty soon. So excited about that, and excited and grateful for you to give us the opportunity to share that information.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you.